Survival horror is one of my favorite genres in all of gaming, besides Japanese RPGs. Survival horror for me brings so much feeling of intensity. I just love that kind of rush that you get on a roller coaster. That's how I view survival horror games. And for today, I wanted to talk about some survival horror games that I feel people should check out or they probably overlooked. So, for this list, we're not going to be talking about the obvious games such as Silent Hill 2, the Resident Evil series, and we also have great series such as the Fatal Frame series. We're not going to be talking about Outlast, Aliens, and things of that nature. I wanted to talk about certain games that I feel like were under the radar, didn't get as much praise, or didn't even get as much love as they should because they probably just got swept under the rug or people just overlooked it. So today for tacosofgeeks.com and our episode number 3 for the 10, we're going to talk about 10 horror games you should play. So let's kick this off with number 10, the Coma Recut. The Coma Recut is an interesting one, and the story follows around Young Ho, who roams the halls of his school at night searching for a way out because in his journey he encounters many threats hell bent on killing him, and one is his favorite teacher. And what I like about this game is its unique approach. First of all, we have a side scroller that's featured in this horror list, which just tells you that this game is something special. It has a really good story, number one, but what also it brings to the table is kind of this hide and seek type of vibe, which I like about. I like the dark atmosphere, the gameplay elements, and of course, there is this tension of fear that comes with it, especially when you're getting stalked by your teacher and you have to dodge, you have to hide. And they have this good use of a stamina system as well, because if he runs out of breath, well, he won't be running as much longer as you can see right here, and Young Ho will meet his cruel fate as he gets stabbed up and die. Definitely check the Coma out. It has a really good story and has some good scares as well. Number 9. Well, this is actually praised a lot, but I still feel like a lot of people don't talk about it as much when they do these horror lists. So, White Day, a Labyrinth name school, is about on the eve of the gift giving holiday, White Day. A new high school student, Lee, sneaks into a school to hide a box of candles for the girl of his dreams. But when the shutters slam shut, he finds himself trapped in the building overnight, hunted by a killer janitor and haunted by the troubled souls of the dead. This is an amazing story. This is an amazing game. Really great use of that first person horror. Just like the Coma and the Coma Recut, this takes place in a school setting, but just like that, you have to use your wits. You have to hide. You have to run. You have to outsmart your chasers. And one thing I really did like about this is the fact that the great use of lighting, great use of sound. Sound works very, very well in here. Just hearing the creeping of the footsteps of the janitor when he's near. You have jump scares, like there's one infamous locker room jump scare, which I thought worked very, very well. It is a really good game. Very challenging too when it comes to the puzzles. Highly recommend this to play on the hardest level if you really want to get your bang for your buck for this one. White Day, a Labyrinth named school is number 9 on our list. Number 8. This is one that slips by a lot of people. Maid of Sker is set in 1898 and inspired by the haunting Welsh tales of Elizabeth Williams. This is a story of a family empire driven by torture, slavery, piracy, and supernatural mystery that suffocates the grounds of the hotel. And what makes this one a great entry, and I think was very overlooked, I have liked this game because they have this great mechanic of holding your breath. As you see that I will say monster, I will say, well, that person there, they are attracted by sound and they can hear you breathing. So, in order to evade these enemies, you have to hold your breath. You have to hide or hold your breath. There's instances intensity here since they're blind that when you hold your breath, they can walk right past you. They won't hear you. They won't see you. But you gotta be careful because they are everywhere, and that's something I really like about this game. Also, what I like about this game is the atmosphere it is. As you can see here in this courtyard, the brilliancy of the use of lighting, the dark corridors, that you have the great use of lighting here, the graining look of the effects really brings that aesthetic out, especially when you're holding your breath. And once again, a great use of sound, like you just see here. See how he's blind, he can't see nothing, but holding your breath, yeah, can invade your enemies. It's something that you really have to think about. It's a fun game, decent story, and I think it was just really overlooked and doesn't really get as much looks as I think it should. But it's a really fun game. I really enjoy it. It has some really great graphics, has some really great use of sound, and I like that aesthetic of holding your breath. So I would highly recommend Made of Skur, and give it a shot, guys. It's a really good game, and of course, oh, forgot to say yes, has some really interesting puzzles as well. But we're gonna head in to, of course, number 7, Home Sweet Home. Oh man, this was probably one of my favorites on here as well. Tim's life has dramatically changed since his wife disappeared mysteriously one night. After suffering from the sorrow for a long time, he woke up in an unknown place instead of his house. While trying to escape from this place, he was haunted by a female spirit. Can he survive? Is this place actually his house? Does it relate to the disappearance of his wife? Some dark, sinister secrets is hidden inside this house, and it won't be a place of happiness as it used to be longer. Home Sweet Home is really good. I really enjoyed this one. If you like such tales as The Grudge, Fatal Frame, it has that type of aesthetic, that type of storytelling, as is more into the Asian type of horror. And look at this jump scare that caught me off guard. Oh my gosh, it's creepy. It's very creepy, especially with this ghost stalker. I would say this is another one of those first person where you don't really combat that much. This is all about evading and hiding. You're gonna see a lot of that on this list, but the best type of horror usually is the one where you can't defend yourselves and you have to use your wits about it. Now, number 6 is one that is highly praised, but once again, I feel like it's not highly praised enough. And we're gonna go with someone who is the creators. This is from the creators of the highly loved Amnesia series. The radio is dead, food is out, and the machines have started to think there are people. Underwater facility Pathos 2 has suffered an intolerable isolation, and we're going to have to make some tough decisions. What can be done, what makes sense, and what is left to fight for? Enter the world of summer and face the horrors buried deep beneath the oceans. One thing I really like about Soma is just that, the locations. We don't have that much underwater horror. Besides this one and Narcosis, these two, which is not on the list here, but I'll probably do another list down the line, Narcosis, these are the horror that I really like to see more settings of. The underwater, the seven seas, the underground, the sea where, because there's so much creativity you can do with this by introducing new monsters, and there's just this type of horror that I feel like is still not explored enough. Once again, this is a horror game where you have to evade, you have to use your wits, you have to hide, but the jump scares work very well here as you're being chased by the menacing machines. There's a nice twist to this story. It has a really good story as well, which I highly recommend. And of course, the use of great sound effects, especially underwater. If you're playing this on PC, highly recommend this with headphones. You're gonna love it. So now let's go into number 5, Through the Woods. Now this is a horror game that is based on Norse horror, Norse mythology, and on the western shores of Norway, that tells the story of a mother and her missing son. Now this one is really good because of the narrative here. What is a parent's worst fear? And that is losing your child. And in this one, I think Through the Woods did a great job, especially in the opening chapters, of encapsulating and capturing what it means for that fear of a parent to lose their child. Now you add the element of the mystical elements of the Norse mythology with the Norse monsters in Norway and things like that, and you have a very unsettling game. And what makes this one also great is the fact, once again, it's atmosphere. That's the theme of this show, this episode here, is the atmosphere. The atmosphere of Through the Woods is top notch because they capture what it's like to be alone in the dark in the woods. You have to play this with really good sound here, especially if you have headphones on for Steam, and if you're playing it on your PlayStation or Xboxes, you have to play it with surround sound quality because you're going to hear everything. You're going to hear the birds, you're going to hear crackling in the woods. It gives you a really unsettling feeling. And the story I thought was very good as well, especially the ending. I highly recommend Through the Woods. It doesn't get talked about as much as the indie horror game, but I highly recommend Through the Woods, especially if you want to see that type of realistic fear. Now let's go into number 4, another game that I think everyone should play, especially now that the sequel is out. But play the original, The Forest, which is about a lone survivor and a passenger of a jet crash. You find yourself in a mysterious forest battling to stay alive against a society of cannibalistic mutants. Build, explore, survive in this terrifying first person horror survivor. Now, this is more of a really open, not I won't say open world, but what makes the forest so unsettling is the fact that they have this great AI with the mutants because the mutants are very smart. They watch you throughout your play. They strike when they want to strike, and they appear randomly as well. You can be chopping up wood, building your houses. You won't even know that they're watching you. They're watching your moves. It's very unsettling. And one thing I really thought worked very well here is just that. And we're gonna go into number 3, which I think is one of the best zombie games out there. State of Decay. Explore an open world full of dangers and opportunities that respond to your every decision. Recruit a community of playable survivors, each with their own unique skills and talents. Design and fortify your base against the relentless hordes of the undead. This to me is one of the best zombie games, and I'm gonna tell you why. It gives you what it feel. It really emulates that feeling of what it means to be in a zombie apocalypse. You have to scramble for a safe house, vehicles. You have to look for medicine, food. You have to take care and be friends and build relationships with the people that you're with. So if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, I like to say that this is the true Walking Dead type of experience. Once your characters die, that's it. There's no respawning with that. Death is permanent here in this game, and that's what I really like about this. It really gives you a great feel of the zombie apocalypse. So we're gonna go into an honorable mention, which is Tormented Souls. Something evil lurks at Winter Lake. While investigating the disappearance of twin girls at Winter Lake, something terrible happens to Caroline Walker. Waking in the dead of night, naked and hooked to some kind of outdated medical equipment in a bathtub, Caroline must fight for her life as she explores the halls of an abandoned mansion. This is another fixed camera angle horror game, and we're starting to see the return of this type of game style play, which I'm all for. This, you could tell, has very heavy inspirations from Silent Hill. Just the way the camera angle is, you can see here. This right here, you see how the camera pans like that? Pure Silent Hill 1. Even with the monster designs, even with the type of story that it's trying to tell. It's very Silent Hill inspired, very Silent Hill-esque, and you know what? It works very well. It has the typical survival horror tropes that you need with limited ammo, puzzles, but it's still a good time. Number 2, which is my absolute favorite on this list, Song of Horror. Speaking of fixed camera angles, Song of Horror is one of the best to do it in recent memory. And before I give you a brief description of this, gotta talk about the beautiful aesthetics of this game. This game is gorgeous and captures that haunted house feel close to perfection. I mean, just the way the lighting is, the way the camera is panned, it gives you that old school 70s horror type of aesthetics, especially in the first levels. I can't stress this enough. You gotta play Song of Horror. It is great, especially with the use of sound and the enemies called the presence. There's a great gameplay mechanic in here where you have to put your ear to the door and listen to what's on the other side. If you hear something, you don't open that door, and if you do, you're dead. And that's another thing about this game which I love so much. Death is permanent in this game. If this character dies, you can't play her throughout the rest of the playthrough unless you restart your game. That's what I like about Song of Horrors. But just to give you a brief description of it, this about the story, the famed writer Sebastian has gone missing, along with his entire family. Worried, his editor sent an assistant to his house in order to look for him. but he never came back. These disappearances spark a set of events that will soon reveal something dreadful, a nameless dark entity known as the Presence. Great, great game, wonderful horror. I loved every bit of it. I can't stress this enough. You have to play Song of Horrors. It is one of the best. Definitely check this one out. And I'm just gushing over it. Great graphics, great sound design. Voice acting is okay, but overall, it's a really enjoyable game. And like I said, death is permanent, so make sure you check this one out. Song of Horrors, definitely worthy of this list. Number 2 on this. Number 1, Visage. I can't tell you, man, this game, there's a reason why this is number 1. For fans of PT, this is the game that you need to get. There are a lot of PT clones out there, but no one has perfected it more or come close to it than this game right here. This game is terrifying and it is challenging. And just to give you a brief synopsis of it, the game is set inside a huge house which terrible things have happened. You'll wander through gloomy corridors, explore every dead room, and get lost in endless mazes. Your head filled with memories of the dead families that once lived in this very home. This twisted environment and void of any life other than yours takes you places you couldn't even bear imagining. And what makes this work, and I know it sounds repetitive because I've been saying it for almost every game on here, but this game atmosphere is where it's at. You have to explore this house. Things happen, things get switched, just like in PT. But what really works here is that atmosphere, that sense of dread, not knowing what's around the corner, the great story, the sound, everything is pure horror haunted house experience here. So that is it. I'm going to wrap this up. As always, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. What are some of your favorite horror games? Comment below and let me know. And thank you for joining us here at the Tacos and Geeks. Later days.